Welcome everybody to How to Speak Maintenance. It's another great afternoon, getting into the fall. We have some great topics coming up in the next couple months. Uh, Today, I am joined with Becca Ramati, as always, who's the Vice President of Education at Texas Apartments Association Education Foundation. That's the longest acronym I've ever. I always have to try to remember it.
TAAEF.
Becca is always awesome. She's always got great commentary for us in these meetings. So thank you for joining, Becca. And then we also have Ryan Mascorro with Camden Property Trust. Welcome, Ryan from Camden.
Thanks for having
You
me.
want to talk to the group about what you do at the company and how long you've been in the industry?
Absolutely. So I am with Camden Property Trust. I've been with the company 8 years. I just hit 8 years, and I'm the market maintenance manager, and I oversee our Austin portfolio, and really just help support all our maintenance teams, help with preventative maintenance, help alongside with facilities projects as well, and again, just really supporting all our maintenance teams on site each day. So love what I do, and again, thanks guys for having me today.
Well, thank you for joining us. I had the privilege of working with you and alongside you, and I got to watch you in action. I know how much passion you have for the property teams and making sure that we're not, we're doing everything we can for the residents. So thanks for joining.
Absolutely.
So today's topic is one of my favorites, preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance is something that is important for our maintenance teams and our office teams to be providing our residents, because if they don't, then it could lead to expenses. It could lead to more tickets and turns. So I'm excited to dive into this with you, Ryan, and chit chat about what you guys are doing there at Camden. So why don't we start off with, oh yeah, go ahead.
I think the fact that we've talked about this a couple times already on the show shows just how important it is, and how important it is that everyone on the team really understands the importance of it, and how they can help, whether they're in the office side or maintenance side, to make sure that that preventative maintenance gets done in a timely, correct manner.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up the whole point of the office and the maintenance team working together on it. That's why we call it How to Speak Maintenance. It's our office teams partnering with our maintenance team. So this is it's going to be a juicy conversation today. So Ryan, why don't you start off with telling us, like, what do you find valuable as far as putting on a preventative maintenance program, and tell us why?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing when you think about preventative, prevents in that word, right? And we want to make sure that we're preventing something major from happening in the future. So I find it really, really valuable that our team members spend a lot of time working on PM on site, but not only that, like really getting to know what they can determine to prevent something obviously major happening. So there's systems in place that we have, and not only that, but our teams have in place on site, that they work together and find issues. It could be as far as jetting, hydro jetting on site, working with our vendors to make sure that we're conching that piece out. It can be as little as replacing a filter, right? Making sure that the teams are out there doing quarterly filter replacements. Even condenser cleaning as well is really huge and beneficial as well. So there's, to me, I feel like there's a lot of programs that the teams can be doing, on site each day. It's, the world is theirs, I mean, you pick anything, there's a preventative measure you can definitely take on anything, when it comes to being on site on the property.
Good point. I think you kind of hit on it too, right? Is making that time for it. Sometimes it could be very difficult trying to make that time. I personally, I'm a big fan of put it on your calendar. Just put it on your calendar for a couple of weeks out and try to commit to it. And even if you can't, maybe you push it a day or two, but at least you're just waiting for that perfect week. Because I mean, I'm telling you, I'm still waiting for that perfect week to come along so I can be able to take care of everything I need to take care of.
Exactly. No, I mean, yeah, using a resource like calendar is really helpful. Another thing we do as well, Jason, is reoccurring tickets. We definitely have that system in place. So it's just kind of another reminder, when the teams see that pop up on their system they use, then, that just kind of tells them the small little reminder, like, hey, I need to hit this PM project for the day. So that's another resource we use as well on site.
How much detail though do you put in the ticket, Ryan? Like, does it just say? Yeah. Does it just say go check your boiler, check your booster pump, or does it actually say, get to a different level of detail?
Right. No, it definitely, the more comments, the better, right? The more comments you have on that ticket, it's better. Just, it's a better reminder. There's one that's a filter change that, say it's a filter change ticket. It's like, okay, well, one through, let's say building 1 through 9, let's hit all filter changes on this day. And of course, working with your teams and make sure we get that notification out to our residents is helpful. But yeah, I mean, the more details, the better, Jason. I think overall, when you talk as far as having detail in there, it's definitely beneficial. Not only that, but to like our on-site teams, if the the maintenance supervisor is away, they want to make sure that they're getting the right accurate PM complete. So yeah, of course, the more details for me, the better.
I mean, Ryan, I'm pretty sure you had kind of the same upbringing as I did. You get this new property, you're excited, you get there, and you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what's
Right.
the size of the filters, where are the booster pumps at. There's one
Exactly.
property in Houston where the fire control room is on one floor and the air compressor for the dry system is on multiple other floors on another section of the garage. So if you're new,
Yes.
you don't know. So I'm
Exactly.
I'm a big planner, big fan of put stuff in there. Say, hey, go to there's a green door by space 204 on the
Yeah.
second level of the parking garage. Open it up, take a look. There's a booster pump in there, or there's a generator or whatever in there that you need to be able to PM. And then tell me a little bit more. I like what you guys have been doing too with the labels in those rooms.
Yeah, yeah. So, like you mentioned, right? There's a lot of movement that happens. Someone can get promoted and they move on to another community. So you have to make sure that that system still stays the same when you do depart to another community. So labeling is big, right? Making sure that our pipes, our pump rooms, our pool pump rooms are all labeled. Because again, if someone moves on, right, it's still there. That label is always going to be there. It's never going to move. And a big one is shutoffs, understanding where shutoff systems are, labeling that as well, because you never know. If there's an emergency, middle of the night, you have new tech that just arrived, you want to make sure that they're supported and they understand, what exactly or where the shutoff system is, what pump room, where's the pump room located, and things of that nature. So, yeah, really having a system for that as well, Jason, like making sure everything is detailed, labeled. This floor is, this is here on this floor. This pump is, west side of the community. Showing it on a map is going to be very beneficial to the team.
Agreed.
Yeah.
What would you say the cost is if you don't complete your preventative maintenance programs? What's the impact?
Oh, I think time, right? Time. The impact for, I was on site, right? When I was on site, um, and we didn't have a PM in place, well, then something happens and now you're losing so much time, right? And I speak on, coil cleaning, right? You're not out there cleaning your coils, making sure that they're nicely insulated. Well, guess what? When summer comes around, you're going to get a call at, 3 a.m. say, hey, my AC is not working. But, when you go out and you have that system in place, it's going to, the cost really is the time, right? And overall, I think, it can be very impactful if you're not having something in place, and very costly. I think it can be, thousands of dollars. Like one little thing that you could have done could like really affect, in the future if you didn't do it, and with major costs. We've seen it, right? I mean, I wanted to bring up the freeze. The freeze was a big cost that took place, and it's almost like we weren't. I call it the what are the snowmageddon? It's like it snowed out of nowhere. Texas wasn't used to it. There was really no system in place that we had, for PM to prevent any damage. So that was major costs. I mean, talking thousands of dollars that it cost when this happened. But now that we're not new to it, now we know, what's to come every year. I mean, knock on wood, we don't get another one this year. But having that system that we learned from that, really helped us out a lot. We wrap PVC lines in water heater closets. We capped off sprinkler heads that were exposed of airflow. And, we had a secondary freeze that occurred, and we saw less cost there, and it's just a matter of taking the right steps and taking the right measures to learn what you can, expect. And once you have that knowledge, you're saving so much money, so much dollars.
I
Definitely.
saw an article in Units that was talking about, what does it really cost? What's the benefit of preventative maintenance? And, it said it's hard to translate. It's hard to really get a number, but they said the return on investment is a remarkable or close to a remarkable 400%, which if that's all those costs that you don't expect, or you gave a great example earlier, Ryan, when we were just chatting about gutters, and maybe you can to use that example as a way to talk about one thing ignored can set off a big old domino effect that can not only cost time, but money and problems and headaches. And so, I think again, it goes back to protecting that time to do the maintenance. And if you think about it from the office point of view, it's going to be frustrating to hear about tickets that aren't getting done that could be done when they're doing PM work. But if you think about a gutter, maybe that changes your mind a little bit. So give that example.
Yeah, a big thing, Becca, is if you see something, say something. And if you see that there is a broken gutter or a clogged gutter, you want to make sure you take the action. You can't just ignore it, because if big rainfall comes in, and that gutter gets backed up, well, now you got possible damaged leaks, roof leaks that can occur inside units that you don't want happening, right? So ignoring something is never going to help. You want to make sure, again, if you see something, say something, you're taking the right measures quickly, very quickly. And yeah, working with your office team too, right? You spoke on that. They're on site as well, right? They're on site walking the communities. They can be a big help when it comes to inspecting things like that as well.
Definitely. I think one of the challenges, I've seen it in the past, where you're getting close to the end of the year and you're, maybe the budget numbers aren't where they need to be. And what's the first thing we want to cut? And I've seen it before in the past. Preventative maintenance is usually the one that gets cut. Do we really need to do this? Do we really need to do that? And my thing is that if there's other things you can cut, maybe you can stop calling a plumbing vendor and maybe do a little bit more plumbing in-house work, or call a sister property and have a sister property come over. So then that way you can maintain the money you need to be able to continue to do that preventative maintenance work. Because,
right,
man, it's the worst when you go to a community and you see that they're struggling and they have a lot of service requests and they're just so busy, and you really are like trying to help them and say, guys, like let's work on preventative maintenance. Let's get in every apartment and change the filters and clean the coils. And the answer is, I'm just too busy. I'm really swamped. Right. We have too much work. And then go to find out, when you open up tickets, they have condensate drains. They have units that aren't working properly because the condenser coils are chock full of dirt, or the evaporator coils full of dirt. I don't know about you, but I've walked into units before and seen just hair all over the coils, and just right. you know that unit isn't breathing properly. So right. They're treating symptoms of lack of preventative maintenance.
Right. And you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point, Jason, as far as like time. And Becca, I know you mentioned, it does take a lot of time. And when Jason, you mentioned like, getting help from sister communities, that's something that we have. It's called CRT's Camden Response Team and Task Force that we have in place. And those, we try to do it like once a month, right? Where a team from our sister communities come in and help them with big projects. Last one we did was at a community was adding wrapping to the condenser lines, right? The condenser lines were very exposed. Not only that, but we had like those battery pressure washers where we went out there and also cleaned those coils. That takes a lot of time for a community if they only have 3 techs, on site. Of course, it's not something that they're going to be able to complete in a day. So we utilize our sources, reach out to our sister communities to, spend a day and just focus on PM.
Yeah. I've even seen it where in a region, maybe there's 3 properties that are all close to each other, and a regional manager or a regional vice president might say, hey, let's make a day during this next couple of weeks where even community managers or leasing consultants go over to the properties and they help. And I've been on roofs I think Ryan, I don't know if you joined us in Arizona when I was at Camden, and we were up on the roof, and we had district managers and regional managers, and everybody was on the roof pulling condensers apart, and they were learning about how airflow impacts the efficiency of the unit. So it was really neat to be able to see that. And I highly recommend it to every company. It's learn how to speak maintenance, learn how to be able to work with your maintenance team.
What a great bonding experience, and also great way to reinforce speaking maintenance. I love that.
Definitely.
Yeah, and JC, when it comes to the office staff too, right? We really recently just started getting them more involved. We do have like little trainings. We call them subject matter expert trainings on site. Well, we created. I think it was actually in DC where they created an SME just for office staff. Right? They had a day just for office staff where they brought in all the office staff and they talked on how to speak maintenance, like what to look for on site. Because they're typically in the office most of the days, but they also can be very very beneficial when it comes to expecting PM on site. So yeah, I thought it was cool. I'm actually going to be doing it myself. I'm probably going to be hosting one in my city, but having them involved in in what we do every day is going to be beneficial not only to them but the team as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I wonder if in the future there's, we keep talking about centralization, we keep talking about, potting, and maybe there's an opportunity in the future to possibly have like a central PM group that's all they do is they start at one property and they work their way through a portfolio and then they go right back to the beginning and they start it all over again.
It'd be good ROI.
Is a good what?
Very good return on investment for sure.
Yes, definitely. Right. So
yeah, just make that. That's actually a good idea. Just make that the main focus. Go in, inspect, have that little small team. Just go from one community to one community. Yeah, it's actually a bright idea.
Blind squirrel gets a nut once in a while. So
right.
Ryan and Jason, let me ask you guys both a question. If someone doesn't have a set, preventative maintenance program, what are the top 3 things you think they should start with? You have to start somewhere, right? So if there's just 3 things that you would suggest putting on a piece of paper as your start of a PM plan, what would those things be?
Go for it, Ryan.
For me, I think I'll start with one, right? Filters, right? Like that. I keep bringing that up. That's a big one. But having a quarterly set schedule on filters is one thing. But really just planning it out like that, whether it's even inspections. Sometimes PM's not about just like doing some type of work. Inspections is big as well. So like making sure that, every week you're walking those rising rooms, making sure there's nothing exposed. Jason, do you have a few as well?
I don't have individual items. The one thing I wanted to bring up was walk your property. Set a couple days and start on the roof and walk all the way down. And walk every building, open every door, open everything. Leave no stone unturned, because when you do that, you bring a pad of paper, you get some your camera going, and you start taking pictures. Then sometimes you can go back to the office and sit down and say, "Here's the things that I noticed that we have at our property. We have a lift station on the back of the community. We have irrigation control systems. You can list it all out, and then be able to kind of pick it apart and say, well, we already have a landscaping contract and they control our irrigation system. So, but you know what? I'm going to go partner with them and go find out, is there anything that we should be doing and checking to be able to make sure that our irrigation systems are operational and we don't have dead grass, right? And as you build that list, you can really start to understand exactly what sort of systems you need at each community. So that's my recommendation. I love walking properties.
I agree.
So, yeah. Well, thanks, Brian and Becky. Becky has some great questions today, so I appreciate this. Ryan, before we go, like, what would be like your piece of advice to anybody coming into the industry?
I think my piece of advice,
PM related. Yeah,
that's not PM related. I think just overall, being very dedicated, being a team player, being dedicated to your team is really huge. One big value I have is, always have fun doing it as well, and, when you're out there, when you're with your team and, there's a million things going on, but really understanding, how to maintain your schedule. Like you mentioned, Jason, it's like maintaining, the relationships you have with your team is just as big as well. So, that's probably the biggest advice, have fun, Go out there and learn. If you're not out there learning anything and you don't walk away with something every day, then you're probably doing something wrong. So making sure you're learning something each day is very big as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
Becca, do we have any questions or anything on
We
the
don't
chat?
have any questions, but we will be back in October 23rd. And Ryan, thanks for joining us. It was really fun to have you.
Again, guys, thanks for having me. I work alongside Dom. I know y'all have had him on a few episodes, and Dom was mentioning like, hey, you should do this podcast. Like, let's do it. This is awesome. I sometimes sit in traffic a lot. I'm always commuting, and sometimes I just turn on a How to Speak Maintenance episode, and it gets my day started. So again, guys, thanks for having me, Jason and Becca, and looking forward to maybe coming on again in the future.
You're always invited, Ryan.
And good plug for the podcast, because you can also find these episodes, all the past episodes, and this one soon on wherever you find your podcast. So you can check them out there as well for traffic purposes.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye. We're still recording.